Solid 2.
What's your longest?
Yeah, what time do you have to be home by?
I don't have a curfew or anything. My longest is probably like
Only during summer.
205 or 210. Yeah, something like
We've
that.
had some long battles.
Like the hour.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Against the Ropes. I am Gio Garcia. I am alongside Christian Mosqueda. Episode number 60.
60.
60, Rip.
60.
Damn, we're getting old. We're catching up, Sean.
You're almost there.
Catching up.
You're going to get me soon.
We do have a guest with us. You've seen him before, all over the internet, all over these boxing websites.
All over the local venues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean from Just Boxing Live, right?
It's different, right?
Yeah, right.
You guys like it?
Yeah.
I like it. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. He is the same person, just a little, what would you call it?
A little bit wiser.
That, yeah, definitely that.
Rebranding, I was
There
going
you
to say.
Wiser works too, though. Either way.
Yeah, so
Rebranding,
welcome
yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Glad to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
A lot has happened since our last show. When did we have an episode, like 40-something?
I thought it was in the 30s
In the
still.
30s. I think it was the
in
mid-30s.
Man, we were so young back then. Didn't know what we were doing.
We were used to seeing him at the All-Star Boxing. I was like, oh, we're gonna see Sean again, but you were at a different.
You guys thought I was just some weird fan. Which I was.
Yeah, so we missed you at our show, but you were at a different show, correct?
Oh, this last one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually at Pico Rivera Sports Arena for that show.
How was that? We heard some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the show itself was all right. There was a little bit of a melee at the end of the show.
Yeah,
well, I mean, you're referring to the aftermath of the show. The actual boxing matches and stuff like that, they're all entertaining. There's a number of people who are guests of ours that I'm happy to have on the and see on the show, or see on the card, I mean. But at the end of it, there was a little bit of a melee. There were some drinks thrown.
Uh-oh.
Ronald Johnson did jump out of the ring and into the stands. It was a little malice at the Palace. I don't know if you guys remember the Palace at Auburn Hills when Ron Artest got hit with the drink and he ran up into the stands and caused
6th grade right there.
Caused a little bit of a melee, right? So if you guys remember that, it's kind of like that, but on a smaller scale.
So what happened? Because I did see some video footage. But for some reason, every time there's like a street fight, the videos are very bad.
Well, my perspective was this. I was kind of right on the side of the ring. In fact, the drink that was thrown that was intended, I think, for Ronald Johnson and his team got a little bit on me. I'm not sure if it hit Ronald Johnson at all. But effectively, there was a decision that you could call a questionable decision at the end of the fight. So Ronald Johnson was rematching an opponent that he had fought some years before. And it went to the scorecards, and he won a close decision that many people in the venue thought that he lost. And people were booing and shouting, kind of crowding around the ring. Someone threw a drink into the ring. Ronald Johnson then did a little bit of instigating, and someone threw something else into the ring at the camp, and then he, had enough of getting stuff thrown at him. He jumped out of the ring, and melee ensued. And I hear people say a lot of things. Like I was even criticized on Instagram for saying that, upping security doesn't necessarily, like people say, oh, they should have had more security. It's not really a matter of security. Security is not meant to stop 1,000 people from charging the ring or vice versa. Mm-hmm. Like we were talking about the Palace at Auburn Hills. We're talking about Ron Artest. That was an NBA game, right? I'm sure they had immaculate security, but it didn't stop him from running up in the stands and popping someone. And after that, basically a riot broke out, right?
6'8", you're not stopping him.
Well, whether he's 6'8" or not, there's just too many people in order to corral or control. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it was a matter of the security at the venue. And I also don't think that it's within your rights as a fan to do things like, throw drinks at people. I understand that they're professional athletes, and, to an extent you're there to be entertained. But I think in any other circumstance in life, if we were just out having a good time right now and someone threw a drink in your face, you would react negatively, which is what happened in the case of Ronald Johnson. Now, I say that and people think what I'm doing is condoning his actions. I don't. We hold athletes to a higher standard. They're not supposed to be doing that, and he should not have done that. He will very likely be suspended. You know, the cat that threw that drink could probably just go to a show next month, though, and it won't matter. Like, you know, the guy who hit Ron Artest with a beer, he should never be allowed in an NBA game again. That's my opinion. And I also think that just because you buy a ticket doesn't mean that you have a right to assault or, you know, throw a drink at or whatever you want to do to a fighter that's in the ring. Especially because, like, he didn't even make the decision. That's not his, you know what I mean? I understand he was instigating and, you know, making some gestures and things like that to the audience, but it wasn't his call. The judges made the decision, not the fighter, right? He came in, he fought. That's what he's supposed to do. Yeah. So I think some people have been kind of overly critical of that, what occurred there. You know, I think it could have happened anywhere. I've been to Dodger Stadium and seen fights break out. I've been to, you know, you could see it on TV and stuff like that. It's unfortunate. Ronald Johnson should not have done that. I don't condone it in any way. But if you're a fan, man, like, chill out. Yeah. You know, there's bad decisions and stuff like that. 2 times I've been to boxing matches. I've been tagged with beers twice. Yeah, I mean, I've been to boxing matches a lot of times.
What type of beer?
I don't know. The first one was actually Floyd Mayweather Victor Ortiz. Yeah. So someone threw a beer at me.
That I understand.
One. Yeah. So they were aiming for me. But yeah.
I see a common denominator here. Don't go to soccer games.
They were aiming for me. That's what happens, I guess, when you root for the wrong side.
I mean, that just happened, right? LAFC game. Just not to go into the soccer too much, but
man, there were 2 topics I gave
right?
you. No.
It's on the board, Chris.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, LAFC things weren't going their way, and for a fan base that's pretty known to be calm. I mean, obviously they have that passion, but you know, things weren't going their way, and then you saw the drinks coming down when they were down 3-1. And
hey man, it feels good. It feels good to throw stuff sometimes.
It does. It doesn't make it right though. You know what I mean? And I think that we expect that athletes aren't supposed to do that. Like if we hit a basketball player or do whatever, we expect that they don't do that. But I think in any other aspect of life, you would not expect that. Like if you just threw a drink in someone's face outside right here, that would probably not go the way that, you know, you wouldn't just expect them to stand there, I think. Yeah. But
what's happening in the playground?
I'm grateful and appreciative for the experience. I always am. I love boxing. You know what I mean? And like I said, there was a number of people on the card who I'm supportive of. I have a tendency to gravitate towards people who I've had a chance to interact with just because I've been able to relate to them. I've interviewed a bunch of those people, you know, and so it was a good experience. It was a bad result, but it was a good experience.
So take off on a positive note, what was the highlight of that night or who was the fight? What was the fight of the night for you in that card? Someone that stood out.
Man, Moreno like came out on a horse and he like had this grand entrance. You seen that? He like came out on the horse and like showed up on the party bus and he delivered. There's some good knockouts. Actually, I had a guest this past Sunday, Chelsea Anderson, who was on that card, who stopped her opponent in 70 seconds. Adelaida Ruiz, so Delilah La Cobra was on that card. I know you guys have had her here. She's been a guest on my show as well, and she had a great performance. So, I mean, overall, is like I said, you know, I was invested in it.
Yeah, nice. Switching gears a bit, there's a big fight this weekend, right? Canelo versus Kovalev. So I'm gonna ask you, Sean, who do you think is gonna win this fight, in your opinion?
I think Canelo is gonna win the fight.
Yeah.
I understand the size advantage and things that people talk about, but Danny Jacobs had a size advantage. Danny Jacobs almost 6 foot tall. Danny Jacobs has a 53-inch reach, which is actually half an inch longer than Kovalev. I said 53. I'm sorry, I meant 73.
I'm like, what?
73.
You know these reaches, huh?
What's that?
You know all the reaches or what?
I know theirs. Yeah, I mean, as part of studying this fight, I wanted to understand, and so I looked at it, and Danny Jacobs' reach is 73 inches. Kovalev's is 72 and a half, just under 72 and a half. So Kovalev has a little bit of height. He has a reach, but it's not the reach advantage, the type that I think people make it out to be. He also fights shorter. You know, he likes to plant.
He's never fought like a tall fighter.
Yeah, he doesn't fight. And that's because he's in 175. He's not a monster in his division. He's actually not a very big 175-pound guy.
Slim.
Yeah, he's slim. You know what I mean? And one of the things, if you guys remember Andre Ward, when he was asked, like, what surprised him about Kovalev, he said how easy he is to move around, how easy he is to, like, body, essentially. Because he's not a super big 175-pounder. So he's bigger than Canelo for sure, but not any bigger in terms of height or reach than Danny Jacobs was. In fact, he's got a shorter reach than Danny Jacobs. So I think I look at that, and I look at the fact that Kovalev, like you said, he doesn't fight tall. He likes to plant his feet to get maximum leverage on straight punches, lefts and rights. And I look at the fact that Kovalev in his past few fights has had a tendency particularly in the middle rounds to later rounds, he just kind of disappears a little bit. He just goes away. He appears to gas. And the truth is, when you watch that Anthony Yarde fight, there was a huge hand speed advantage for Anthony Yarde. It is
that was like
noticeable.
2.5 months ago.
Yeah.
The recovery.
Exactly. And there was a noticeable advantage. Now, Anthony Yarde got tired and some things happened in that
Both
fight.
of them did.
Yeah, they both got very tired. But Anthony Yarde had a noticeable hand speed advantage early on in that fight. And so I look at it and I think, Canelo has the tools that he needs, and the advantages that Kovalev has are not as big as some people think, other than the fact that he hits real hard, right? So would I be surprised if Canelo got knocked out? No, I guess not, because Kovalev hits real hard, right? But if Canelo won and was able to stop him, which is what I think will happen, then I wouldn't be surprised by that either.
You know what's the difference between being a heel and being a face in wrestling, by any chance?
So the heel would be the bad guy, for lack of a better term, and the face would be the good guy.
All right, so all this time that I've been here doing this podcast, I always give a lot of shit to Canelo, and that's supposedly. But honestly, if he does win this fight, there shouldn't be an argument anymore. It should be just number one pound for pound fighter.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, to me, I would say Canelo's already the number one pound for pound. And for a while, Gio, Chris know that I had him like 3, around that area. But I feel like he's done it.
At one point, he had him out of his top 10.
But I feel
but
I feel like now he's done just enough, and the other guys haven't done, the necessary, they haven't gotten the necessary wins or
it's just those 3 words, pound for pound.
Yeah. I mean, just going up.
Same thing with Amanda Serrano.
Like Amanda Serrano doesn't get nearly enough love.
That's why I feel like I should take off Clarissa Shields and put Amanda Serrano as number 1.
Amanda Serrano, like you hear people talk now about Clarissa Shields possibly being the greatest woman boxer of all time. Yeah. All this stuff. Amanda Serrano is a beast. That last fight with Heather Hardy.
And she was on PEDs too.
Oh, Heather Hardy? Yeah.
She was on PEDs?
Well, she tested positive. Yeah, she was on a banned substance. I don't think it wasn't like an anabolic steroid or anything like that. It was like a water pill or something.
Oh, okay.
But no, Amanda Serrano doesn't get nearly enough love. I think Canelo, he's got a lot of people who dislike him for one reason or another, and if you spend enough time, you could pick apart anyone's career.
Yeah.
And so people will look at things like, who he beat in order to get those titles, who he hasn't fought in certain divisions. He didn't fight Charlo over here or Boo Boo Andrade. And when he got the 168-pound belt, it was actually a regular belt, and it came from Rocky Fielding. And even you could look at Kovalev and say that's a strategic 175-pound fight.
It is.
Right? And it is. But my argument would be that in time, that won't matter.
Right.
Like when it comes to building legacy, and something that I said on the show on Sunday is Roy Jones Jr. was the heavyweight champion of the world. Yeah. Right? Nobody looks at it and says, oh, but it was John Ruiz. Yeah. He didn't beat Lennox Lewis or Evander. Like, he didn't beat these. He beat John Ruiz. Yeah, he beat John Ruiz. And when we look at his legacy, we call him the heavyweight world champion. We say he started his career at middleweight, won the heavyweight championship of the world.
But people get that perception over time.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, like, in the moment, you might look at it and go, oh, it's John Ruiz. But over time, when we look back on that person's legacy, we're not critical in that way. We're not critical in that way, unless you're Floyd Mayweather.
So I'm going to take it over here to Gio. Gio, do you think Kovalev, I mean, if you put money, I'm pretty sure you're going to put money on Canelo, right?
I don't bet in boxing.
No? So you think Canelo, though?
No, but...
and by what way?
Doesn't matter. Same as Sean. Yeah. Anything could happen.
Okay.
It could. Like, I don't think any... Would you guys be surprised if he lost, if he was knocked out? Like, I wouldn't be surprised. No. I'd be surprised if he lost a decision.
Yeah.
That would surprise me.
I'll be surprised if the fight goes all the way to the distance, just because Kovalev's last fight against Yarde.
Yeah, I would be too. I think this fight ends by knockout either way.
I get.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in my opinion, I agree with you. If Canelo loses by a decision, that would be a little...
No way.
It's not gonna happen.
It's just too many. I think it's too much skills. But he's fighting Kovalev.
He's paying the bills.
In a moment where Kovalev is.
What if he gets knocked down like 3 times in different rounds?
Yeah,
that would be.
You know, the thing that's I always say stuff like
happen.
that. Like the one I remember most is Tyson Fury. So I said, there's no way that Deontay Wilder outboxed Tyson Fury. If it goes to decision, he cannot win, right? And if he wins, it will be because he knocked him out. And at the end of the day, it went to decision. What I didn't account for is the fact that Tyson Fury went down twice in the fight, right? So you look at it and you're like, oh, yeah, well, that could have something weird like that could happen. We're like, oh, maybe he goes down 3 times and then it goes to the cards. But, you know, that I just don't see it. I don't see it.
I mean, for sure, there's going to be a size difference. You're going to see that I think the bigger Kovalev and the smaller, you know, Canelo. My question is, if Kovalev does land, does he have enough power to really hurt him and finish him?
Sure he does.
Because we know that Canelo has a great poker face. He's been hurt. He's been hurt by Triple G.
Yeah.
Jose Miguel Cotto.
But he's got such a good poker face where you're not sure, and some of his opponents are afraid to get in there and get countered. You know, so they hesitate a bit. So
I do think that Triple G, to your point, right, is one of the biggest punchers, probably maybe the biggest puncher at middleweight. Mm-hmm. So he's done some damage to Canelo. It's not like Canelo hasn't been hit. So we know that he has a good chin, but more importantly, we know that the thing he's focused on over the last, 5, 6, it's all defense. It's all head movement. Mm-hmm. That's like what he focuses on, man. Like you watch him, you go watch the cat train, all he's doing is avoiding pool noodles, and throwing heavy hooks to the body. So like Kovalev has a reputation of being weak to the body. I think everybody sees it.
Or below the belt.
Yeah. He was going to lose anyway. He was. But no, I think I think Canelo has what it takes. I think he'll stop him.
Yeah. I'll ask you, how did you score that first fight with Kovalev and Andre Ward?
That's a tough fight. Like that's one of the ones where I can't tell you exactly what the score is, but it's if you saw it for Andre Ward, I understand. If you saw it for Kovalev, I understand. It's a close fight. Mm-hmm. I don't get too upset about close fights. Like a lot of people go, oh, that was a robbery. Mm-hmm. If I thought something was a draw, a la, Prograis and Taylor, right? And you told me you thought it was Prograis and somebody else told me he thought it was Taylor by 1 round. I understand. It just means that at some point we saw 1 round different than each other. Yeah. You saw 1 round different than me. And I can understand that. I think it's harder when you end up with like crazy unbalanced scorecards. That's where controversy comes in, right? Controversy comes in when someone wins like 117, 118 on a fight that it was close.
Also worth noting in that fight, if it would have been a draw, they would have gone to a 4th judge.
Yeah. There was
because of the World Boxing Super Series.
The finale.
Yeah, because of the finale.
Take notes.
Overtime.
Yeah. But so I think I think Andre Ward, I tend to favor Andre Ward, but at the same time, if you told me you favored Kovalev in that fight, that's fine. Yeah, if you told me you thought Kovalev won 9 rounds or 10 rounds or something like that, I'd be like, no, you're out of your mind. It was much closer than that, right? Much closer than that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Gio this question, and Sean, you can answer it after. If Canelo wins this title, becomes a 4th division world champion, where do you rank him in Mexican fighters of all time, Gio?
I mean, I don't think his ranking is changing. I don't think beating Kovalev is like something out of this world. Okay. But it is a 4th division. I don't know. He's probably 3rd for me right now, so he's gonna remain there.
Oh, you think he doesn't get obviously past Julio Cesar Chavez? No,
nobody's getting past Julio Cesar Chavez.
What does Canelo have to do?
He went 90 fights undefeated.
Yeah, no one's ever gonna do that again. Of course,
nobody's gonna do that.
And there's no way
nobody's gonna put 100,000 people in El Estadio Azteca.
Yeah, but if you go by like skills,
he's more skillful than Chavez.
Yeah. Okay, but you just don't think there is enough for him to do, because if you go by resumes, there's an argument that Canelo has a better resume already than Julio Cesar Chavez, right?
Yep.
Who's the second fighter that you rank?
What 20? Probably Salvador.
Okay.
Because he was undefeated, right?
Yeah.
But from now, how old is Canelo? 29?
29, yeah.
I don't think there's anybody who can up his resume from now on. Yeah. So I don't think it'll be his fault.
Yeah.
But
okay. I agree that he's never gonna be as loved as much as Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. But I think he's done enough based on resume to at least warrant, like, you know what, I might be up there with him.
Who was Chavez's best win?
Right, his best win.
Didn't beat Pernell. No, it was called the draw, right?
It was called the draw. Yeah. I guess you would have to go to El Puertorriqueño, right?
Who, Macho Camacho?
I think so.
All right.
Yeah. I think
Who's Canelo's best win so far?
His best win, Triple G, I would have to say.
I'd say Cotto.
You say Cotto?
Cotto's a bigger name.
Bigger name, but I think Triple G was a bigger threat. What do you think, Sean?
I think Kovalev is a bigger threat than Triple G.
Really?
What do I think in terms of who is Canelo's biggest
win?
His biggest win is
so far.
Triple G, number 2.
Number 2, yeah.
The second win against Triple G, I think, was his biggest win.
Okay.
For a lot of reasons, I think because of the way he did it. You know, that was about stylistic adjustments, and he came in and made the necessary adjustments and was actually the aggressor for most of that fight. He didn't beat him going... Yeah, he didn't beat him going backwards.
I think Derevchenko beat Gennady more decisively than Canelo did.
The second fight, you mean? Yeah, because I mean, I'll still, to this day, I'll tell you, I think he lost the first fight with Triple G by a good margin, like, you know, 8 rounds to 4 or something like that. Like, what's that?
Strongly disagree.
Do you really?
How many? Do you know? We should look up these stats. How many punches did Gennady miss in that fight? I should look that up before.
I've never been asked that. I have no idea how many punches he missed.
Exactly,
actually.
Because people don't look at those things. People don't look at defense. People just look at offense.
Yeah, defense is a criteria, but they're not weighed the same.
So if you're throwing
meaning,
10 punches and you land only 1, and the other guy lands 1 out of 3, most people will give credit to the guy throwing 10, right? Because he looks
a lot
like
of people
the
do.
quote unquote aggressor, right?
Yeah, well, because effective aggression is, there's basically those 2 criteria, or specifically clean effective punches is like the number 1 criteria of anything. So
I'm pretty
defense,
sure Canelo landed the
defense
punches
is
in that fight.
Well, I think I don't know that I agree. I don't know that Canelo landed the
We should
cleaner
watch it
punches in
together.
that fight.
We should watch it together.
Yeah.
See, I
Because a lot of times, like when we had these debates, most people watch the fight one time.
I've watched it more than once, but I haven't watched it recently. How about that? And I'd be happy to watch it together, actually.
That'd be cool.
And the thing is like, it's one of those fights where I'll look at that one. I'm pretty confident and still see Triple G winning. Because I was confident the first several times I saw it. I was confident when it came in. But, you know, I'm open to sort of understanding what other people's opinion is on how to score the rounds and things like that. And there is a lot of subjectivity in it. Like, you can't say that there's not, right? Like, some people will look at it and go, oh, well, stylistically, I prefer this over this. You know, and I think there's things that we could do to remove subjectivity so that judging is a little bit clearer. But the truth of the matter is...
In what way?
In how could we remove subjectivity?
Olympic style.
No, you think so?
Just count the punches.
No,
So
you
in
can't
what
do
way?
that.
That's how you win a fight.
That's not how you win a fight.
So in what way?
That's not how you win a fight.
See, and that's where judging is all messed up. Because
So,
everybody has their own opinion.
Here's something that the WBC did for Lomachenko and Luke Campbell that I really liked. The WBC had basically judges on reserve who were doing real-time scoring without the sound. And the thing that's cool about that is they're auditing without being influenced by other people's opinions. So most of the time when judges do an audit, it's because there's been a bad result.
Yep.
Right? So there's been a bad result. So you already know what everybody thinks the outcome should have been. And then you have to go in and audit it and decide whether or not, you know, there's some kind of controversy there. But doing a live audit of a fight with several judges who are watching it.
That's cool.
Exactly, right? That's really cool. So they did it for Lomachenko and Luke Campbell. And I think what that opens the door to is it actually opens the door to overruling decisions that are controversial. Because what can happen is, like, let's say sometime in the future, we have 4 or 5 judges doing a live audit, right? There's a decision that takes place in the arena, and then they go, hey, wait a minute, we went to the live audit. These 5 judges said the other guy won, right? We're going to overrule it in, like, semi-real time, right? Yeah. So nobody has talked about doing that, but it's not a bad idea. You know what I mean? So I think that it's a step in the right direction to do it.
You know what's interesting about that first fight with Canelo Triple G? I watched it on different channels, I suppose. I watched it on YouTube, but different, I guess, networks. I watched it on, like, the British ones, the Mexican ones, and they all had, like, different scorecards. I think when I watched it on the Mexican one, guys like Eric Morales had Canelo up
Yeah.
And then the guy sitting next to them is like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah,
I have to
Triple
knot
G
you
is
up by
up.
this much. So that
Yeah.
fight was interesting to score.
To your point, I think you asked me in what way could you help remove subjectivity. I think you could be more flexible in scoring. So the system that we have right now is referred to as the 10-point must system. And if you ask most judges, they will tell you at the end of any round, I have to give someone a 10, and I have to give someone less than 10. That's kind of the criteria. And the problem
we'd be
is
sitting there ringside at All-Star Boxing like 10-10, whatever.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
not even bothering.
But it's frowned upon. It's frowned upon. I've had judges on the show, and I ask them about it, and they say, hey, go and watch it round by round, and at the end of every round, give someone a 10 and give someone less than 10, because that's what we have to do.
It's a coin toss.
And the thing is there are many rounds that are not worthy of that. And I think that one thing you could do to help with having to go, oh, I liked this better, is reduce the dependency on 10-9 rounds. So as an example, like a judge might go, man, like you said, that round was a coin toss, but that guy was moving forward, right? And I like people who are moving forward. So I'm going to go 10-9 to him because I have to give somebody a 10 and somebody a 9. If we were a little bit more flexible and said, hey, you can give 10-10, someone could look at a close round and go, you know what, I don't know. And that happens a lot.
Yeah.
If you go watch close fights, a lot of times you'll look at it and go, damn, I have no idea who won that round. Yeah. Every time you guys ever watched the fight and said, I don't envy the judges in this fight, that means there's a bunch of rounds that are super close.
Especially the first round.
yeah, exactly.
I'm like,
Super
how are
close.
you picking a winner if both guys threw 10 punches?
Yeah.
So one thing I think we could do is we could say, hey, we're going to be a little bit more understanding of rounds that are considered 10-10. Now, a bunch of people are probably going to tell me that will result in more draws. Okay?
That's cool.
But that's better than a bad decision. Okay? A draw, in my opinion, saying, hey, this fighter ended up with a draw because I scored a bunch of rounds 10-10, is better than saying we just got the wrong guy, right? We totally got the wrong guy because I favored the same thing over and over and over, right? And now all of a sudden I ended up with one guy winning 9 rounds because everyone was so close. I just picked my favorite criteria, you know?
Exactly.
So I think one thing you could do is have more flexibility in that way.
Yeah, my thing, because you at the end of the day, it's all about transparency, holding accountable the judges, right? But this is something I already mentioned before, but I should say it again just because I think if a fighter knows they're down by a certain amount of points, right, maybe the trainer will start thinking, you know what, this fight is way too off. Maybe we should call it off already. So in that sense, like, wouldn't you think that maybe probably after the third round, right, you'll probably hear, oh, this is how much you're down in the scorecards.
Open scoring. Yeah. So
Which some states already have it.
Yeah. Mexico also does open scoring for their
Texas
fights as well.
Or?
There are other states that do it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure,
yeah.
but I know in Mexico there's open scoring.
Just the only one that's important is Las Vegas, right there.
Yeah. There are pros and cons to open scoring, and I'd have to say that I'm undecided. So a con might be a coach will tell you, hey, a fighter needs to focus on what I tell him and only what I tell him. A fighter needs to focus on fighting and not on what the score is, right? And so them knowing the score is not good for them. And you can also say that it would discourage fighters. So you could say that, hey, man, if you've lost 6 rounds in a row, you might be like, oh, man, I'm just out of this. I'm out of this. Let's call it, right? So you could say that it would discourage fighters. That doesn't mean I'm opposed to it. It means that I can see kind of both sides of the argument. But there's definitely reformation or change that I think I'm an advocate of change. So I think anything that helps boxers, like you could say that'll make more boxers quit early, but I could rephrase that and say it means boxers take less punishment than they have to, right? They don't continue to get beat up round after round when they don't need to.
But the thing is, like, even with that, like, I think Dana White said this, that boxing is a sport that can go out of business the next day. Like, easy. So if I'm a consumer and if I'm in the stadium, right, and I'm seeing a scorecard that may be way too off, don't you think that people around that stadium are going to be not just throwing bottles at the fighters, but they'll be throwing bottles at the judges?
Yeah, that's true. People are going to do all that stuff. I don't agree with Dana White that boxing could go out of business.
Yeah, that's weird.
Fighting can't go out of business. Like, hey, look, we've been doing this since 3000 BC. It became an Olympic sport sometime in the 600s BC, right? Like in Greece. And it still lives right now. We've been doing it since 1890 with gloves on or something like that. Like, if we showed you a timeline of boxing, it would go back to like just after there was man. So there's no way boxing's going away.
I think he's just saying it from the standpoint that
people fight.
That in the sense of UFC, it's more regulated. From boxing, it's more deregulated. So a boxer can die easily, right? No health insurance and stuff like that. In this sense, UFC, they could probably take care of him afterwards.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that you mentioned was accountability. I think that's a big thing. In a lot of sports, you'll notice that officials, and this is not a thing that's boxing. You could look at the NBA, for instance. Right? Yeah.
They don't got to do
officials.
interviews.
Officials are protected in many different sports. And accountability isn't necessarily there for bad calls. And I think the things that you can do, some states are doing. Like, I like instant replay. I've actually seen it used a number of times this year effectively.
Against, Beterbiev.
Yeah.
Those rules
and you know what? That was brilliant. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
Because you know why? So Vegas is the only ones who kind of came out and said, hey, we do instant replay here, right? They went to the commissioner, and there is no instant replay policy. A week before that, someone went to the commissioner and they said, hey, our policy here is to respect the referee's ruling. So they wouldn't go to replay, even though they were being told that they could go back. The commissioner went for the Wojcik knockdown. They don't have an instant replay policy. You know what he said? It's at my discretion. Let's watch it.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic, because at the end of the day, all everybody wants is for you to get the right call. To get the right call. Just do everything in your power to get the right call, right? So, like, I don't care if you don't have an instant replay policy. If we could show you it's not a knockdown, just look at it and say it's not a knockdown, right?
Yep.
And that's what he did. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, nice. We kind of gave Gio kind of gave Teddy a little bit of a hard time, right? With him getting in. I mean, of course, like, he's in his right to
the emotion he displayed after the
I just told him, I didn't like that he took too much time, when he should have been focused on.
I was glad that he did that. You were against it.
I was against it. Yeah, I was against it. So my question is, how important is coaching going to be in this fight? Eddie Reynoso versus Buddy McGirt.
Oh, I got you.
It ain't gonna matter.
I mean, they're both pretty well established. I think the thing that's important that we've seen recently, particularly in Canelo's case, is we've seen these guys make adjustments to the way that they approach a fight. Kovalev, the way he looked against Eleider Alvarez in the first fight and the second fight after he brought on Buddy McGirt is very different. They made tactical adjustments, and he was able to. The way that Canelo made very tactical adjustments in his second fight with Triple G, he came out and did something very different. With that said, I think Canelo has kind of shown that he's a little bit better and more dynamic, I should say, with tactical adjustments. And I don't know that I attribute that to Eddie Reynoso, and I don't attribute necessarily Kovalev's to Buddy McGirt.
And this is the second fight, right, with McGirt? This is the third fight with McGirt, right?
It's the third. I think the Alvarez fight,
That's
and
the
then Yard, and now this one.
Okay.
Yeah. So his third fight with McGirt, we have this debate a lot, which is how much can you really teach someone who's that seasoned in their career? But I think if you look at his rematch with Alvarez, having McGirt in his corner somehow seemed to make a difference. There was a tactical adjustment there. Yeah. So whatever they did, it was right.
I think, to me, more than anything, it's the chemistry between the two. Because you see great coaches like Freddie Roach or Robert Garcia, they've taken losses, but I think it's because that chemistry really isn't there with their fighter. Like, I don't know, McGirt, like I said, third fight, how much difference is he really going to make? All right.
I heard also Robert Garcia say something interesting lately. I think it was a ES News interview where he said, like, he said, people come in here and once they start to train with me, they're like, I made it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Robert Garcia is my coach, right? And he hates that because it means that you're not trying. You know what I mean? Like, you're not trying hard enough. So.
But the thing is, and I said this a long time before, that it's not about even who you're training with, but also the culture that you're around. So in this case, where Kovalev trains is right. And then your left-hand corner, you have Lomachenko, right?
Yeah.
Straight ahead of you, you have Usyk, right? The right-hand side, you have Gosik, right? And at the end of the time, you don't have a belt. All the other guys do. So that creates elevates your culture to develop something. So this is your last chance.
I think that's an excellent point.
If I was Kathy Duba, this is it. This is it for him.
I think that's an excellent point. That's very true. Those are you're in good company. You know what I mean?
But I'll ask another question, guys. Do you guys believe that the roads lead to Beterbiev for the winner of this fight?
No.
Hell no.
Too dangerous. Too dangerous?
I think not. I've kind of been I've been on the expectation that Canelo is going to decide to drop back down, maybe go again at 168 for Billy Joe Saunders, who's now with DAZN, and get a 168-pound belt that's not a regular belt. So he has a lot of opportunity at 168 and 160 still. And I think that...
No, I said no.
No, I'm saying, why would you even fight Beterbiev for?
Yeah, so I just don't see it. Like,
it doesn't even make sense.
Kovalev, and you may say, well, why go to Kovalev?
Nobody knows who Beterbiev is.
Yeah, I think Kovalev is actually a really smart move for a lot of different reasons. Because it's a winnable fight. Mm-hmm. It's a legacy fight. Like I said, at the end of the day, when we look back on it, we're not going to say, oh, he didn't beat Beterbiev. He beat Kovalev, right? It's a legacy fight. It's a winnable fight. And there are people at 168 who I think most of us would consider more challenging right now, like, for instance, Caleb Smith or David Benavides. Those seem like tougher fights at this point in their career than maybe a Kovalev does. So he gets a belt in another division. And in a way, they have to manufacture a monster, right? Like, anything other than Triple G now is a step down. You look at it and you go, man, he did the two things with Triple G. How do we make it so that we can make something marketable? And so they said, 175, right? Sergey Kovalev, it's a winnable fight, but you can manufacture a beast. Not to say that Kovalev he's not going to walk through him, Kovalev is not a slouch, and I don't mean anything like that. I just mean it's a winnable situation. So I think Kovalev was very smart. I wouldn't be able to say the same about Beterbiev. I wouldn't look at it and go, that's a super smart fight. I think it's
since Canelo has been in the zone, you have to look at how many fights he has taken, right? So Rocky Fielding, Daniel Jacobs, right? So this is the first fighter that he's fighting outside of promotions of matchroom boxing with Eddie Hearn, right? So he still has 3 fighters that Eddie Hearn can actually match up with Canelo. So that's Caleb Smith, Demetrius Andrade, and Billy Joe Saunders. Yeah. Honestly, if more marketable, more challenging, Billy Joe in London and England.
Yeah, and I think Billy Joe... And that was the fight I said next. Like, I think Billy Joe makes a lot of sense. You can go down and get a 168-pound belt. That's not a regular belt.
Yes.
And it's a winnable fight and a marketable fight because you have
British invasion. He could take the other guy out too. I'll see you in September.
And that's why I think it's annoying to listen to boxing fans speak on these fights because it's a business. Like, people, you want to take the boxing standpoint, but all that doesn't even matter. We just got to create a good fight that people will watch, and that's it. I mean.
Yeah,
those names, Andrade, who's going to watch? Who knows who Andrade is?
Yeah. Well,
who knows who Charlo is?
Yeah.
That doesn't even make sense.
Just to show you that it's a business, I think last week, for instance, when they mentioned Demetrius Andrade, Canelo said, it's not a challenge for me, and it would be a boring fight for fans. Yeah. Right? And then the same week, Tyrone Woodley said he wanted to fight Canelo, and Canelo said, it's not a challenge for me, but hey, if the price was right, like, I would go and do it. So that's, there's a lot about the business.
Man, let me tell you something. Canelo will fight Logan Paul instead of Demetrius Andrade first. All right, man, because it makes sense.
It makes dollars, right? So it makes sense. But I see the other side of it because I'm a fan, right?
That's not how it works.
I understand.
It's a business. People got to make money.
Yeah, it's both.
People
but like
make money.
I can look at as a fan and say, hey, there are fights that I want to see. So like,
what? You want to see him fight Andrade?
Yeah, I think everybody wants to see.
Why would you want to see a guy get knocked out in a couple rounds?
For what? I think you have 3 fights in one.
Those same, the same people who are saying, "Oh, I want to see him fight Andrade," are the same people who are going to say, "He's taking the easy route for these belts. Like, he's going to knock that guy out."
They will say that. They will say that. But I think also at the same time, like, as a boxing fan, like, we were talking about where does he rank pound for pound if he wins this fight. So Lomachenko right now is unifying a division that he is smaller than. He's not a true 135-pounder. And not only is he unifying it, soon there's a very good chance that Vasily Lomachenko will be the undisputed champion in a weight class that he does not belong in. Yeah. The fights are challenging for him just because the men are bigger, right? Like, you look at Luke Campbell and stuff like that, and it's not that Luke Campbell, who himself has a tremendous amateur pedigree, an Olympian, all that stuff, right? But Lomachenko controlled that fight. It was challenging for him because Luke Campbell was a big guy who was heavy, who was long, who was all these different things. He's going to become the undisputed champion in a division that is above his weight class.
Yeah, as you get older, you weigh more.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at that, right, and you're comparing that to what Canelo has done, which is, the WBA belt with Rocky Fielding.
But that doesn't matter.
Sergey Kovalev 175. And he did unify the division, but in 2 very close fights, and then he wouldn't go and fight people that we all assume he could beat anyway, Like, we assume he could beat Charlo. We assume he could beat Demetrius Andrade.
So my question
but he doesn't go and do it. So this is why people rank Canelo lower on the pound-for-pound list.
That's not why.
Sure it is. Sure it is. People will tell you he didn't fight Demetrius Andrade. He didn't fight Charlo.
Who are those guys? Who have they fought?
What? No, I think you're thinking I'm making an argument that I'm not making.
Are you speaking to casuals or who are you speaking to?
But Sean, to your point, I think at the end of the day, as much as you want to see that fight, I wouldn't mind seeing it, but I think it's going to be a blowout. But I think if Canelo didn't vacate the IBF belt, right, he would have fought Derevyanchenko. But I think to your point, it's like, oh, it's not a fight that people want to see, right? So the same thing with Demetrius Andrade. Maybe the people are not going to want that.
My question is, when did belts started mattering again?
When did they start mattering again? I think they've always mattered to fighters.
Really? Some of the biggest fights in history weren't even for belts.
Well, yeah, but they still matter to fighters. Like, you think if you ask a fighter, what is your ambition, right? Yeah. What do you think they're going to tell you?
So you think belts mattered to Canelo?
Yeah, I think belts mattered to Canelo. Did you see how he reacted when they stripped him of his belt?
Yeah.
They took a belt away from him, and he literally threatened legal action against his promoter.
Do you think it was because of the belt, or was it because you took something from me?
Well, both of those things are true, though.
Yeah.
By taking the belt, they took something from him.
He worked.
What do you mean?
I don't understand when you fought all these Hall of Famers and you have this resume, fighting Boo Boo Andrade for a belt. You think that matters to him, really?
I think he wants to have all the belts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I think he wants to have all the belts, and I think belts matter. And as proof that belts matter, just look at his comments after they stripped him of his belt.
So many guys have belts who haven't even fought for belts. So
the thing is,
I don't even think those belts matter anymore.
So if belts don't matter, right? Take away the people that have a belt. Then who do you have Canelo fighting then? Without a belt?
that's different, because if there were no belts in boxing at all, then you may not turn around and say, oh, I want him to fight Demetrius Andrade or
who do you want to fight?
Or all those guys.
Exactly.
I actually think the Kovalev fight is interesting. I think Billy Joe Saunders is
Billy
interesting.
Joe is interesting.
I think both those fights are interesting. I'm kind of past the wanting to see a Triple G3
trilogy. That's gonna be bad. I've been saying this since the beginning.
Yeah, I imagine that will still happen, but yeah. So I think those two are still interesting. Kovalev is more interesting than Andrade, and so is Billy Joe Saunders. And they're both more interesting than Charlo to me.
Yeah, with me, I mean, he's just running out of opponents, I think. That's why Andre kind of makes sense after Billy Joe and after the names that you just mentioned. Yeah, after seeing the Jacobs fight,
what's his record?
He's like 18 and something.
Who are some notable?
He doesn't have notable names. I'll give you that. I just think
that's not why people want to see it.
Yeah,
though.
People just want to see.
People want an undisputed world champion.
Yeah. Does that even matter?
Ask Vasily Lomachenko.
How does that matter?
like, what do you mean?
How does that matter? What do you get from that?
Ask Terrence Crawford.
Don't you know who the best 160 is?
Yeah, but the two people who are pound for pound ranked in the world above Canelo right now are there because they were undisputed world champions or are en route to being undisputed world champions.
ESPN, maybe.
And it's something that you could, like I said, right? How do you take away subjective?
You can't. Yeah.
That guy has a belt. That guy doesn't have a belt.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if you're if you're getting upgraded, to a real belt, you have a belt.
Yeah, and the belts aren't be all and end all. The best person in the division doesn't always have a belt. Exactly. To be honest,
They've
right?
never have.
The best
Who's
person
had
in
all
the
the belts in boxing
have
history? Who's had all the belts in one division? You could count them in one hand.
Mike Tyson.
You can count them in one hand. So why is it so important?
That's why it's important.
Because it's
what do you mean? It's important. Why? Because
people
it doesn't
like
happen.
Boxing politics don't exist. I mean,
I'm not saying boxing.
That's my point.
Yeah. It's a business.
That's why it's hard to get all belts, right? Because it's not just that you have to fight against this fighter. You have to fight the biggest opponent of them all, and that's Al Heyman.
I don't understand. Boxing fans are interesting.
No, but I think the very reason you state is why it's important, because so few people have done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so few people have done it, right? So
can you name them?
I mean, you can name the people right now who have been, right?
Can you name them?
Like Alexander Usyk, Terrence Crawford. These are all cats who are like considered among the best.
Who else can you name?
Mike Tyson was. Lennox Lewis, I guess, to a lesser. Lennox Lewis would argue that he was.
Wasn't Roy one?
What's that?
Roy?
I don't think Roy was an undisputed champion.
Wait, Hopkins.
160.
So you can't name them.
Jermaine Taylor.
We can't name these people.
Jermaine Taylor. What do you mean you can't name them?
You can name the recent ones. right?
Jermaine
'Cause
Taylor
you
wasn't that
remember.
recent, but
But the thing is,
Mike Tyson wasn't that recent either.
yeah,
30 years ago.
but it is.
I'm only in my 30s, man. We're going back to when I was born here.
Yeah, but all these belts are getting inflated at the end of the day because what the WBC is doing.
Oh, I don't disagree with that. Like making Vasily Lomachenko the franchise champion, for instance. Yeah.
And that's why there's talks that if Anthony Joshua does win this fight against Ruiz, that he's going to be vacating the IBF belt, that he's going to be winning against Anthony Ruiz, because the person that's going to be the mandatory for the IBF belt is Pulev with ESPN Top Rank, which I totally understand, and he should do that, because if he does that, he understands that WBC are going to elevate Deontay Wilder as the franchise WBC belt. So then that belt doesn't actually matter. So if I'm Anthony Joshua, fuck it. I see what you're doing, so belts don't matter. We're just going to fight and fight.
Belts have not mattered for a long time. I don't know why we have these discussions.
Well, it's
You're the one who brought it
interesting
up,
that
they
you
don't matter as much as before.
Lomachenko's still going to be
It's interesting
top
that you
2
say
pound
that
for pound,
because the reason that this fight for Kovalev is a legacy move is because he's going to win a 175-pound belt.
Yes.
That's why it's a legacy move. If the belt wasn't there, it's not the same.
But it matters because he's 5'8" and could probably fight at 154, and he's fighting at 175. That's why that belt matters, right?
Yeah, but it's because of the belt that it matters.
If you're fighting Bubo Andrade for a middleweight belt, does it matter?
In the process of collecting them all, you mean? Like,
if he has one belt to his resume, does that matter?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say it matters to him.
Sure.
I would say it matters to Canelo, and it matters just like it matters when he loses a belt.
En route to become undisputed. It matters.
Interesting.
Whoever you collect it from, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter how they do it. Like, look at Vasily Lomachenko wanted the WBC belt so bad that he petitioned for it.
Because it looks nice.
That's why you think? He just wanted the jewelry?
Yeah.
Yeah, he petitioned for it. He petitioned to be able to fight Luke Campbell for that belt. It wasn't his right. Yeah. It wasn't his right. In fact,
because Devin Haney was number 3, and then the French guy was number 2, and Luke Campbell was number 1. I asked Eddie Hearn that question, and they elevated his ass all the way up.
Yeah, it was not his right to challenge for that belt. He petitioned for the opportunity to challenge for that belt to a lot of negative results. There were people who said it wasn't his right to do that. He should not have had the opportunity to do it. He did it because he wanted the belt. That's why. So, like,
And that's why belts don't matter, because anybody, if you know people, you can get that opportunity.
You could say belts don't matter, but I tell you, the actions of fighters will tell you differently. The fighters want the belts, man.
Yeah, I think for Charlo and Devin Haney, they're happy to be the WBC belts.
Of course, because they didn't have to fight for it.
Yeah, I
don't know, man. If you think Devin Haney, like, that's
who has he beat?
That's kind of upsetting.
That was upsetting.
That's kind of upsetting. Yeah. And I feel like that Devin Haney has to understand a little bit. Or I would like to ask him that.
Yeah, because you often hear that they're fighting for a vacated belt.
See, like, here's the thing: is fighters.
So why do belts matter?
Fighters are fighters. So, like, at the end of the day, all this, like, he's ducking him and he's ducking him. I don't believe that Devin Haney is afraid of Lomachenko, and I don't believe that Lomachenko is afraid of Devin Haney. When that fight doesn't get made, it's because of business, not because those two men are afraid of each other, right? And so at the end of the day, I think Devin Haney loses a little bit in this because he would have had a bigger payday against Lomachenko, an opportunity to win the belt in a fight that I guarantee you, if you asked him, he would tell you right now, I could win that fight. I could do that. And he believes it, right? So I think it is a little bit unfortunate.
It's unfortunate because you can tell he wants it so bad.
And I think the other thing that's sad about it is the fact that, like, we're sitting here. Can you guys tell me in detail what the franchise champion is?
No, franchise boys.
Yeah, like, if we don't know it, like, we each have a show that we do every week, right? like if we sit here and talk about boxing for fun for hours. If we don't know what the franchise champion is, how is anybody supposed to understand what it is?
All I know is that the WBC stands for World Boxing Cartel.
I think, to me, essentially, it's a way of saying
keeping the face of that
keeping the face without having any of the obligations that you would have as a champion. So now Devin Haney has to fulfill the champion's obligations, but Lomachenko still gets to I want to say parade around, but I don't really mean it in that negative way. But he gets to represent as the WBC champion.
I feel like the only thing the only way to lose that franchise is when you age out. Like, I feel like that's the only way, and somebody else becomes. Which is going to be Devin Haney.
And this is why Canelo gets hated. he was the first one to be franchised, and that was not his fault. It was just to make everybody happy. Al Heyman happy with his fighter, Charlo, because he was not going to fight Canelo at all. Canelo was not going to give him the fight at all.
Yeah. I didn't know there was going to be multiple franchise champions. I was like, okay, maybe it's just
once
Canelo,
there was one,
he's
man.
the base of boxing.
Once there was one, you had to
The
know.
Lomachenko one caught me by surprise.
That's why these belt talks bore me, because at the end of the day, boxing doesn't make sense.
To me, the craziest belt is the invisible belt.
There's these
the lineal belt.
There's these sanctioning bodies that control who really is their champions now, right? With the franchise champion. So it's like people sit there and argue for hours, but boxing doesn't make sense. It's controlled by certain identities. So
yeah, it is good to have a mountaintop, though. You know what I mean? For other fighters, it's good to have a mountaintop. It's good to be able to point to someone and say, "That's the guy."
But we already know who's the guy. Why do you need this?
Well, because you have to
piece
prove
of leather.
it. Because you have to prove it
To who?
to yourself and to other people. So, for instance, like I could say right now, I suspect that Terrence Crawford is the best 147 pounder in the world,
And that's
and
why you're
you
wrong.
would say,
He beat Jeff Horn for a title, quote unquote title.
okay, you would tell me I'm wrong, right? You would tell me I'm wrong, but we don't know.
There's no
We don't
difference
know.
whether
We
he
don't
has a
know.
championship or not. He still beat Jeff Horn.
No, the point I'm trying to illustrate is that the guy at the top of the mountain, the guy with the belt, he's at the top whether he's the best or not.
Yeah.
And it's your responsibility to come and take that from him. You have to go and get it, right? So, like, there's many times where consensus forms. Consensus formed around Kovalev before he was ever the world title holder in that division. So he was the best, but he didn't have the belt. You have to prove it. You have to prove it. It's not enough. It's not enough for everybody to just think you're the best. You have to beat the champion.
Which doesn't happen nowadays. You just get upgraded.
You just I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. I'm really disappointed in that, the Lomachenko getting. I mean,
Why? It's a terrific move by WBC. We're talking about it right now.
No, I get it's a business.
They're making money.
It was not smart.
Here's what I don't understand. What I don't understand is
David Haney wanted it
he
so
was
much.
one belt away. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if he goes and he challenges the winner of Richard Comey, right, and Teofimo Lopez,
Which he will.
which he will. Yeah, that's obviously the writing's on the wall. He's going to go and challenge the winner of that, and
Like
he
I
wins.
told you guys.
Is he the undisputed world champion?
Yes. He has a WBC belt as well, right?
But he doesn't, though.
Yes, he does.
The WBC world champion is technically Devin Haney,
Yeah,
and
he doesn't
Devin
have
Haney
anyone.
has to
Hold up,
fulfill
Sean, this
all
is
the
where I disagree
obligations.
with you.
Oh.
I disagree with you with this one.
On what, that he doesn't have a belt?
That he is
He
undisputed.
has the green belt.
No, I agree that he
The
is.
franchise one.
No, I agree
It's
that
the WBC championship.
yeah,
He
yeah.
never lost it.
Yeah.
I agree that
okay.
he would be the undisputed world champion, and he deserves that recognition if he can fight that person. But it is interesting that in that same division there is a
somebody
WBC
else.
world champion,
And that's
whose job it is.
That's you guys' fault for acknowledging that.
whose job
For talking about it. He shouldn't be
what he's-
acknowledged as
Yeah.
a WBC champion.
Okay, I see what he's saying. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean. But whether I acknowledge it or not, it's the truth.
Yes.
It's the truth of the matter. Like, I didn't create it.
Right.
That's just the current situation right now. And the thing that's strange about it is he's the one who has to fulfill the obligations of the WBC world champion, not Lomachenko. Lomachenko doesn't have to fulfill those obligations.
He's chilling. Yeah.
So I think to call him undisputed. But I guess, like, in a way, the WBA did this too by splitting out the regular belt and the super, right? So that the WBA regular champion, the WBA super champion. Canelo only has a WBA regular belt. The thing that's interesting with franchises, they split it, but they went the opposite direction. They made their new one the bigger
Higher.
one. Yeah, they made the WBA made their champions and also introduced regulars in there. Now, like the WBC has gone, no, we're going a level above all our world champions.
Goes back to my question. Since when do belts matter?
Always and still.
It's just
Always
different
everybody-
levels.
everybody's
Just
got
different
one.
levels.
Everybody's got one.
It's like elevators now, right?
You have other topic, Chris? Because I got a topic to talk about.
Okay, bring it up.
We're going to wrap it up pretty soon, right?
All right, so
I said 2.
We'll continue tomorrow.
Tyson Fury.
Tyson Fury.
I actually believe this in Tyson Fury when he says it, just because when you look at the writing on the wall, like you mentioned. So 2 fights in, 3 more fights to go, because he only has a fight deal with ESPN Top Rank, and then he's going to call it quits with retiring. Do you actually believe that? So yes or no?
Do I believe he'll retire?
After this contract?
Yeah, I believe it.
Okay. Yeah, part of it, I agree with it, because when I hear, to you, the most dangerous fighter is a what?
The most dangerous fighter?
Yes.
You mean like, what do you mean by that?
What's the word afterwards? The most dangerous fighter is...
I was going to say a happy fighter.
A happy fighter.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Happy fighter.
And I think fight a happy guy. Shit.
No, I think that's where Tyson Fury is at right now.
Yeah, his point in life.
He's at a point of life where he understands that he has... That in the beginning, it wasn't even about the belts anymore. It was not even about the money anymore. It was just reaching this happiness after he was thinking he was actually going to commit suicide.
Proving people wrong.
Am I hearing that belts don't matter?
No, Tyson Fury believes...
Tyson Fury
considers himself
the
lineal heavyweight champion of the world.
Champion.
And he considers himself that because he never lost a belt.
Never lost
in the ring.
And I think
so. Yes, they matter to Tyson Fury.
So I think that's why I believe, and I said this too, Chris, that we're going to see a Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury like trilogy, because it all makes sense. At the end of the day, you're not going to have two fighters. Who was the first fighter that Tyson Fury fought in this ESPN deal?
I don't remember his name.
Was it Wallen?
No, that was the second
one.
No,
it was not.
Schwartz.
What?
Schwartz.
And then Wallen. Mm-hmm. So, more than likely ESPN are going to want that money back of that $100 million contract, right? So, in this sense, I do believe that Tyson Fury, that's why when I see him doing this wrestling stuff, it's because he's in a happy state. Easy money for him.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, too. The wrestling stuff, I think, is brilliant. Yeah. Wrestling gets way more views than boxing. He's going to get so much public notoriety from being in a wrestling ring.
That's where belts matter.
It's all about, everything with ESPN has been about building Tyson Fury's brand here.
Yeah.
I've been about building his brand here, and I actually think they've done an excellent job.
They did. Better than both combined, Lomachenko and Crawford.
They've done it definitely better than Crawford.
Yeah, well,
this man, if you're boring, nobody's gonna want.
They've done a really good job at building Tyson Fury's
brand. Well, he's building himself. Yeah.
They're working with him.
Yeah.
They're working with him. Building his brand.
Mm-hmm. Well, shit.
They're giving him the platform,
does he have
I think
ESPN
he's doing it himself.
On,
yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I've never seen him.
You haven't seen him on ESPN?
He's a lot on BT Sports.
What
Sky
I mean
Sports
is like
too.
all the things he's doing to get notoriety, working in restaurants the week of the fight.
Which he's fighting tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah. By the time this airs, we'll have the result.
Yes.
Yeah. He's fighting tomorrow in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Saudi Arabia.
And that kind of makes you
the crown jewel.
Wrestling.
That's my lunch.
Wrestling.
See, that's where belts matter, dude. If you're the WWE champion, god damn, you're going to be a worldwide star.
He's not fighting for a title, bro.
Hey, he'll get there. He'll get there. I believe it. If he retires from boxing, he will.
But remember, Floyd did the same thing. So did Mike Tyson. They all at some point had their stretch in WWE.
I mean, I know wrestling is scripted and all this. People know this, but it's not easy, man.
Boxing is scripted too, Chris. The hell?
Man.
You're still putting your body on the line, and that guy's a heavy guy.
You guys don't sound like people who love boxing. I'll tell you that much.
Nah, War Boxing Cartel. Boxing, I have a relationship that I hate it the same much as I love it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I hate it even more than I love it.
He used to love it.
Because it's just like when you get into
he's new to boxing, so he's just noticing.
It's just that you see it's a sport that's never going to change when technology around it can actually help it, or at least modify the rules, because you're always going to have depths. That's for certain. But at least we can at least dress these new rules where a fighter can, like Max Kellerman was talking about the whole idea that maybe we should have fighters fight during the day of the weigh-in. The other day I was seeing Logan Paul talk to Chavez Jr. And this guy said, I didn't even know this, that when he fought against Martinez, the next day he increased himself by 30 pounds.
Yeah. Well, did you see the Robert Easter fight?
Wait,
only 30?
Did you watch the Robert Easter fight?
No.
On Showtime? So Robert Easter just fought on Showtime.
He went up, right, to 140?
He's at 140.
He was at 140.
Against Granados?
Granados gained 27 pounds. Granados went up by 27 pounds from the official weigh-in to the unofficial weigh-in on fight day. He just hydrated up. Yeah.
Damn.
And I can actually see that happening, dude. This is the first time where I was hallucinating in the Long Beach Marathon. During the 23rd mile, my water weight, I was actually my mind was going left and right, and my eyes were just like going to pass out. And I can only imagine how a fighter is when they're actually increasing their weight in the 9th round, where that's where you get bloodshot to the head because you're going to get a coma with a big shot.
I believe that Max Kellerman has his head in the right place, as does everybody who tries to put these kind of regulations. But the thing is there's kind of a common sense approach to this. If I were to say, hey, people should weigh in, why do you think Max Kellerman, what is his argument for people weighing in on the day of the fight? What's the end result? Like, why weigh in on the day of the fight?
It's an unfair advantage.
Isn't that
It
worse?
boils down to he wants you to compete at your natural weight.
Which nobody does.
Now, if you look at the restrictions that the IBF puts,
10 plus.
Yeah, 10 plus. The restriction.
And people complain about that.
Why do they do that?
Like, what?
They do that because they want you to compete at your natural weight. Mm-hmm. Look at the restrictions that the WBC puts on, okay, now we do 30-day, 15-day, 7-day weigh-ins because they want you to compete at a natural weight. Mm-hmm. All of these things are all kind of beat around the bush ways to regulate dehydration. Yeah. Instead of saying, we're not going to allow it. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So like every time someone says, I think we should do this with the weigh-in, we should do this, my feeling is always like, why don't you just make fighters fight at the weight that that's the end result. That's what everyone's saying. You want people to compete in their weight class. It is absolutely the intention of having weight classes. The reason we have it is so that you're competing with men of a comparable size, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, why don't you just measure hydration and say, hey, we're not going to let you fight dehydrated. So why don't you weigh people 60 days in advance and tell them we're not going to let you lose X amount of weight between now and 60 days from now.
Yeah, and the thing, with the one fighter I see right now, right away, that comes to mind is David Benavides. So I was watching an interview, I think it was yesterday on Fight Hub, and he was talking about how they asked him, when are you going to move up to 175? This guy said probably in 3 or 4 years. I'm like, dude, you're actually going to be at 168 for that long?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
He's young, but dude, come on. Your weight, dude.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, they're all half measures, and you could argue that same day weigh-ins are worse, right? And that's the argument people have. People know it's worse for fighters for this reason. It's better for fighters for this reason. Either way, it's a half measure. You could just say definitively, you know what? We're going to take steps to say you can't do this. If you want to compete, you have to compete at your weight. Or you have to be able to lose weight through nutrition and things that are healthy and only a certain amount, right? But that's not been anybody's position. Everyone kind of just instead says, we're going to try and regulate dehydration.
Yeah, and that's my thing too.
And that's why belts don't matter, because you have a 200-pound man fighting at 160 and
I think belts. I could say anything, and he's going to follow it up with, that's why belts don't matter.
They don't matter. Money makes sense.
He's going to make
this is going to become a soundbite on my show. I'll hit the button, and it'll just say, that's why belts don't matter.
So usually...
money matters.
Yeah, anytime I see Anthony Sims Jr., I always tell him, hey, where's your weight at? Where's your weight at? And one of the things that come to my mind when a fighter is actually making a weight, to me, is all discipline. He's taking care of himself outside of the ring, right? In this case, training. So when I was watching the day of the weigh-in, this guy, Anthony Sims, was weighing about 1 pound over the actual weight limit of 168.
We're going to edit this out.
So even though it's not even editing out, it's about putting somebody against the ropes. So the thing is, for him to be undisciplined for 1 pound over the weight tells me a lot about what's going on. So I'm not sure if it's something that whether or not he can actually be at 168 or actually at 175. So at one point, are you actually killing yourself making weight and taking a risk that could actually hurt you later on in the future?
See, I don't think people understand, because that 1 pound really makes a 10-pound difference. Yeah. That's the difference between fighting a guy probably 220 to fighting a guy probably 190. So I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me.
That's why I think a lot of this stuff around dehydration and regulating dehydration, it's kind of just an interesting way of doing it without saying what everybody's feeling, which is, why don't you just fight at your weight?
Yes.
Right? And at the end of the day, people will go, oh, well, what about the people who balloon in between fights? What if you're Ricky Hatton, right, and you balloon in between fights? Stop it, right? Don't do that. You're a professional athlete. There's only a set time where you can, be a professional athlete and compete at the highest level. And if what we're saying is, hey, I'm going to prevent some guy from going up to 200 pounds because he wants to party and do all these things, okay, I prevent that guy. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? So if he wants to fight at that weight, then stay in shape, right? You're an athlete.
So you're saying...
I'm not saying you can't gain any weight, but don't gain 50 pounds between fights.
You're saying we should have random weight tests.
Random weight test.
You know what?
There is. There's always a 30-day weight.
The WBC now. The WBC does 30 day. They do 30 day, 14 day, and I think 7 day.
Yeah.
So the WBC goes 30 days out. I would assert that you could go further than that. You could go 60 days if you're talking about an 8-week camp.
In this case, Adrian Broner would never fight.
Yeah. If you're talking about, or you'd fight bigger men. If you're talking about an 8-week camp, then go 60 days out. right?
But-
Go.
I just
I
imagine
mean,
an audit on Chino Maidana, like, eating his
Wake
steak.
up.
Yeah.
But I don't
and-
know. It makes sense, but when people see,
It
Jacob-
hurts business. That's the problem.
When people see a Jacobs getting weighed in 10 days prior to the fight against Canelo, people are like, why the fuck is Canelo restricting his opponents? Why is he weakening them?
Well, that's
But isn't that more fair? You're fighting guys 6 feet tall who probably walks around. Like
there's a
200
lot of
pounds.
good ideas that hurt business.
Yeah.
And that's at the end of the day. That's why, like, I could say, like, for
That's
instance,
why none of this matters.
is
'cause
it
it's
a
all
good
about money?
Is it a good idea to say professional men should only fight 10 rounds or 8 rounds? That's probably a good idea, but it will hurt business, and and that's why these decisions don't get made, because it hurts business.
Don't make money. It don't make sense.
Yeah. Right. So I think, but there's a lot of things that we could do to make the sport better for fighters.
Like you said, we've been fighting for how long? 3,000, whatever.
All of time.
Let it happen.
You
man.
know what, man? They
Let
used
it
to
happen.
fight at their own weight. Back then, they just fought at their weight. They just fought anybody.
Fat tiger.
No, they didn't even have weight class. They probably just fought, like, remember UFC when it first started, and they just fought like
Rey
anybody?
Mysterio
There was-
became the
there was
world
no,
heavyweight
no
champion.
weight classes. Rey Mysterio, did he beat the Big Show or what? So did Floyd Mayweather. Seen that?
There was a
I don't
couple
know.
times
People
we-
talk about all these changes and stuff. This is such an old sport.
What you
You're not
think
gonna
about
change shit.
KSI versus Logan Paul?
I'm
All right, let's
conflicted.
wrap it up.
You conflicted?
Well, I'm conflicted because I can tell you that I genuinely don't have a lot of interest in it.
Yeah.
So most fights, it's not hard to get me interested in
I
the
still
fight.
don't know who they are.
Well, yeah, I don't either. But
idea.
I would also say that if they were boxers, it wouldn't matter, right? Like, so if I went to a boxing show and I didn't know who two fighters were, I would still be
Yes.
invested in it. I would still be interested in it. It doesn't pique my interest. The argument that people make for it, though, is that, hey, it brings attention to the sport in a good way, in a
Which we
positive
need.
way.
It makes business, makes a lot of money. So
Makes money. We
So the
need it.
first fight, $10 on YouTube, 1.2 million buys, 12 million.
Yeah. And so, like, look, if it brought that many people to boxing and now boxing has more fans, then, I can't hate on it too much,
And
even though I'm not interested
I
in
give both
it.
guys credit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a lot of
Anybody
people,
who'll do it. Anybody who'll do it gets credit,
A lot
bro.
of people who are in these in this
Mayweather fought
business.
McGregor.
Well, yeah, the thing is, a lot of people who are in this business who are basically the media or who have shows like this don't even box at all. They never get in the ring. So to me, my assumption is that Logan Paul and KSI have better experience talking about boxing because they were at least have the nuts to get inside the ring and talk about boxing.
No.
You know?
That's why I'm not gonna watch it. I don't want to watch two amateurs fight.
Every time you watch someone in their professional debut, isn't that what
Yeah, that's another thing.
isn't that
too.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
I'm not intrigued. But I shouldn't say
No,
it.
I'm
but
saying I'm not interested
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. It doesn't pique my interest. But if it brings eyes
Yeah.
on it, I can't hate on it.
Yeah, I call
Yeah. Make money.
this
Make
one.
money.
I don't. You know,
Yeah.
I don't begrudge men to do what's good for their
Yeah,
business.
I'm not too interested in this either, but I like that Logan Paul is he knew how to promote this fight.
Yeah.
That's some
Who
boxers
was that
don't
one?
know.
So
That's
what were you gonna
the
say?
blonde guy.
Oh, no,
Some boxers don't know how to promote themselves, how to
That's-
promote a fight.
Yep.
He's very entertaining. I'll give him that.
well, I was gonna say that this month of November, no question about it, is casual season. You have Canelo fighting this Saturday, and then the following week you have a bunch of casuals from YouTube watching boxing.
I don't mind that though.
We need them.
A lot of people
feel like-
use that term negatively.
Exactly.
Uh,
That's why I don't like it because it's
Casual
like we
season.
need those people,
Yeah.
man.
Boxing needs casual fans.
Yeah,
Casual fans
bring
is
'em on.
how, like, Floyd
That's how
Mayweather
we
and Manny
survive.
Pacquiao sell 4.5 million pay-per-views.
And while the casuals watch that fight, who do you have between Nate Diaz and
So-
I have Nate Diaz.
I was asked about
And my thing is, who will you have as right now in boxing? Two fighters to fight the BMF belt, the baddest motherfucker belt in boxing.
Let me take the first. So the Nate Diaz one, someone asked me on
You said
Monday.
no UFC, right?
Yeah, I know you guys broke all my rules today.
Sorry.
No, the Nate Diaz one, someone asked me on Monday, and I just had to kind of reference my shirt. No, I'm just kidding. That's
good. Good answer.
I
Next
know
topic.
so little about MMA. You would be surprised. I know very little about MMA. I think I went with Nate Diaz just because I'm familiar with Nate Diaz. Like, I picked the name,
Yeah.
but it's not
it's
based on
welterweight.
anything. It's not based on anything.
Okay. Analysis.
Casual UFC fight.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, I watched a few.
You're a casual fan.
I'm a casual casual MMA fan, and that's okay.
Yeah.
For your other question, so the BMF belt, two fighters, and do they have to be in the same weight class, or it's just any two dudes?
Any two dudes.
Belts don't matter either.
There you go.
Yeah, my answer is belts don't matter, so I don't have to.
Yeah.
The baddest. Man, that's difficult.
I'll put Deontay Wilder as one.
Deontay Wilder, I think, is just the given. But then the thing is, like, who do you put in there with him?
Yeah,
though?
yeah. Doesn't matter.
Baddest.
Yeah, like I would say, like Deontay Wilder's got to be number one.
Yeah, he's number one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So who do you put him?
He's got to be number one.
Again, no weight class.
Wait, is this a belt?
Yeah, no
that you
weight
just
class.
This is a belt.
This is an actual.
This is the actual belt.
What?
Nate Diaz. Oh, you guys, come
See,
on.
I don't know
Going to
anything.
talk about Nate Diaz in the last podcast. They even talk
Sean,
about the BMF belt.
I wasn't
dude.
here in
Come
the
on,
last
dude.
podcast.
Sean,
I don't know. I
ridiculous.
thought this was a hypothetical.
No,
thing that you
it's
made
not.
up.
It's an actual title.
Now do you agree with me?
UFC.
Now do you agree with
This
me?
is MMA. I don't know what they do. I can't
No,
comment
but
on it.
no,
What
this
are we
no,
talking- Man,
hell
all right,
no.
let's-
This belt is a
Anyway.
legit real belt.
Anyway.
So who do you have?
A
I don't even know what we're talking about.
and
right
it doesn't in MMA it doesn't require
This
weight
is the
classes.
first time. This is the first time they're creating the belt for this fight because both guys are just
Okay, but both
they're
guys
just
are the same
bad.
size,
They're
right?
bad.
They're
Yeah,
the-
yeah.
yeah. They're the same size. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, I don't know, man.
All right.
I don't know anything about the BMF belt.
Yeah. If you had to give a hypothetical belt to a boxer based on those,
Dude,
Based on how
those
bad they were?
exist,
I would-
dude. They exist.
they
The
exist. I
hypothetical
would give that
belts
to no way after whatever happens in that
Versus
Nonito
Wilder?
Donaire fight.
That's
something
too
to-
hard.
Yeah, and they're fighting
Yeah.
next week too.
Yeah, they're fighting on the 7th, November 7th. The monster, in no way. Yeah.
No, I'm looking forward to that Logan Paul.
Yeah, are you there?
I'll probably go there. I want to see the WC belt. Devin
Billy
Haney.
Joe's on that card, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he'll be there. Diego Pacheco too. He'll
Yeah.
be there.
Yeah.
That's right. Billy Joe Saunders on the undercard of Logan Paul in KSI.
That's boxing for you, man.
2 cruiserweights, KSI and Logan, 6 rounds.
Are they
I
fighting
guess-
for?
Is it 6 rounds?
Is it for a belt?
It's for the
Yeah,
YouTube belt.
YouTube.
YouTube belt.
Sure, that one matters.
Hey, they're making a lot of money, man. So you seen Shannon Briggs lately?
Yeah.
It's a guy's
Wait, how much are they
hilarious.
getting paid? You guys know?
I don't know, but they're making money though,
I have no idea how much they're getting paid.
for sure.
I know
millions.
Tyson is getting like 8-9 for that WWE fight.
Hey,
I heard it.
yes,
No, I thought it was 9 to 15.
Something like that.
Yeah, it goes. It's as high as 15. I've seen. Yeah,
Yeah.
as high as 15.
Do you guys think he keeps that purse this time around? I know he donated his last purse.
That
Yeah,
shouldn't be a
he's gonna
question,
need it.
Chris. I wouldn't even bring up that question.
He's
Just
gonna need
allow him to make money. Let him be. Seriously, he already did his own deed.
True.
So be it.
So all right, let's go around the table, guys. Predictions for Kingry versus Duno.
Oh my gosh, casual season.
Skip.
That's a skip. What do you think, Sean?
I wanna
Oh
see a
man,
good fight.
I gave a prediction for this, and now I'm afraid I'm going to contradict it. So I have to recollect what I
Okay.
said. No, I think Ryan Garcia is going to take it by unanimous decision.
So you had Duno at the last prediction?
What's that?
Yeah.
No.
Can you
I
say you're
picked
gonna
Ryan
contradict?
Garcia.
You said by
No,
nine?
I don't want to contradict. I have to think of what
Okay.
exactly I said. No, but I think Ryan Garcia is going to do a unanimous decision job on Duno, and Ryan has kind of touched this level before. So he had fights with Jason Velez and Carlos Morales that were very competitive fights, and they were fights that actually had him, led to Eddie Reynoso and kind of resetting. And taking some opponents that were not as good as Jason and Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean is that's no disrespect to those opponents. They were just both coming off of knockout losses and things like that. So he's touched that level before earlier in his career, was able to come away with the victories, but was less skilled at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So my impression is that he'll be able to do it again against Duno.
Chris? No. Gio doesn't care. You don't care, Gio?
I'm not intrigued.
I would say if he needs to get a couple knockdowns, even if he wins UD, he needs to get some knockdowns.
You think so?
I think so.
The pressure?
I
You think the
Ryan
pressure will
needs-
get to
I
him?
think
Why
he
do you
needs-
say that?
I think he needs to. If he doesn't knock him out, he needs to get some knockdowns.
Why?
I honestly I wasn't too impressed with Duno this last outing.
Yeah, but I think. Oh, are you saying for Duno to get the decision, or for
No,
Ryan?
no,
to
for
get the-
Ryan to get the decision. And I
So
think
what
he
does
needs a
that
couple
have to do with
knockdowns.
Ryan?
I think he needs to make a little bit of a statement.
Why?
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Duno's a pressure fighter, so
Yeah.
you might say that over time, judges may start to favor kind of the pressure of Duno Ryan has shown an ability to succumb to pressure a little bit earlier in his career.
So why does he need a statement?
So you could look at it, but
a knockout is a statement. I think he needs at least, he needs to get at least a knockdown.
I think Ryan's looking for a statement too, given everything that happened with Duno before. Yeah.
What happened?
Well, previously, Ryan was supposed to fight here at StubHub actually only a number of weeks ago, and his opponent was arrested. And at the last minute, and they offered Romero Duno as a substitute, and there was the negotiations fell through in terms of dollars because Duno was considered a more challenging opponent to take on 1 day's notice. Duno was already on the undercard of that fight, so he was prepared to fight that day, and there was like a big media drama. Like they had to hold a press conference because Golden Boy and Ryan had a falling out. They held a press conference to talk about, some statements that were made about him not wanting to fight. Believe what? The press conferences?
These dramatic stories.
Oh, with
I believe that story.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I believe that.
Didn't they just sign the contract like the next day and they were happy? And
it wasn't
money.
It wasn't just the next day. Yeah. No. I do believe that story. Yeah, 100%. I do.
Did you saw what the deleted tweet that Oscar gave to Ryan Garcia?
No.
Yeah. He said something to throw the jab and go under and tell your trainer that.
I don't
think I see Canelo
that.
actually took that into offense to his
trainer.
just
recent. Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
Which
you tell Eddie Reynoso this should be the game plan?
Yeah.
Or? Oh.
So my thing is, how long do you see Canelo with Golden Boy?
Well, even Canelo and Golden Boy were supposedly recently going to go into litigation over his contract and over commitments that were made to Triple G when he was signing with DAZN and Triple G Promotions and all that kind of stuff. So there's been bad blood with Ryan lately and bad blood with Canelo. And, I mean, the thing is, at this point in his career, Canelo is doesn't he have,
his own
some crazy amount of fights left on his contract? Like Canelo still has 6 more fights after this one. Or so, 8 fights. He has an insane amount of fights on his contract with DAZN.
Fight 3 of 11.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're going to be making up opponent. This is why he's going to fight Bubu Andrade, because he has to. He has to fulfill a contract
at the beginning of his contract. He's going to fight these lesser opponents because there's just really nobody else left. Let's keep it real.
But. Yeah, so I don't know. It's difficult to say, but I can say that he has recently, at least in the media, been unhappy. Yeah. But I do believe those things. I believe that Canelo was unhappy with the IBF situation. I believe that Ryan was unhappy with what he was offered for Duno.
Don't make money. It don't make sense.
Yeah, I don't see Oscar being with Canelo anytime soon anymore.
Yeah, Canelo seems like the type, if something is wrong, he won't sugarcoat it. He'll say it out to the media. He said it, just recent that he's, he's just happy. I think he called Oscar. He's never been loyal, and that's in response I've been with Eddie Reynoso, Chepo, all my career. Oscar has changed trainers throughout his whole career. He's not loyal. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but his translator, he doesn't use Golden Boy translators anymore. It's his own people.
Well, I mean,
it's I didn't notice that.
Yeah, any little thing that he does, it's all
no wonder they've been better.
Well, for me, I'm talking about it from the sense that this is probably the next stage of Canelo actually growing up, right? So at some point, Golden Boy, in this case Oscar, grew up and just let him be his own self and just promote himself, right? Where he didn't need a Richard Schaefer anymore. So same thing with Floyd Mayweather, right?
I mean, if you think about it, I think Oscar has come under fire for something else, and I think Canelo's starting to distance himself from that because you don't want to be associated with that.
Whoever you are is going to.
Who would have won in their primes?
Ooh.
Who would have won between who?
Canelo and Oscar?
Canelo.
I said Canelo. What do you?
So with the guy who has the more money to pay the judges.
Man. Shit.
There you go.
Well, how did they fare against common opponents? Not that it matters, but I mean,
they're still different eras. Yeah, but it's too hard to compare, I think. Plus, common opponents is always can be misleading. Mm-hmm. Styles make fights. You know what I mean?
Who had more belts? That's what really matters. All right.
Canelo.
Anyway.
No.
It would have to be at 154, right?
That's what I'm saying. Oscar was his best at 147, but
you'd have to give the edge to Canelo.
Catch weight.
Okay.
All right. Let's get out of here, man.
Yeah. I'm tiring Gio, man.
Lucky I made it. Just for you. Oh, you want to talk about your rebranding a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Enough of this boring stuff, man. Let's talk
of the
about
boring stuff.
that matters.
The rebrand. So we're in the process of forming a nonprofit organization called the Just Boxing Foundation. It takes time in order to get all that done in terms of, the names, the trademarking, the nonprofit status, and all that different stuff. But we expect that it'll be done in the first quarter of next year. In support of the foundation, we rebranded the show. So the show used to be called Beat the Count. But it's now called Just Boxing Live, in support of the Just Boxing Foundation that is yet to come. The mission of the Just Boxing Foundation is to support past and empower future generations of boxers. We, for instance, would be interested in doing things like helping amateurs compete in international competition. Amateurs don't always get, particularly in the United States, they don't always get paid to do things like travel internationally and stuff like that unless they have sponsorships and endorsements of their own. In some other countries, that's not the case. And then, bookending it on the other side of their career, a lot of fighters sometimes go through tragedy or need help after they retire, particularly, most fighters don't reach the pinnacle, right? Mm-hmm. The ones that we see do, but a lot of people don't. So want to help that and also just do everything we can. We just want to help people, you know what I mean? But fighters in particular. So that's sort of what the mission is of the Just Boxing Foundation. We've rebranded the show. Just Boxing Live is the same show every Sunday at 2 p.m., except this Sunday it's early. But every Sunday at 2 p.m., that's what's up.
Yeah. Do you have a guest already booked?
For this Sunday? I do.
You want to? No?
Not going to say who it is.
Secrets? All right.
No. Not going to say who
Tune
it is.
in,
You were
ladies and
talking
gentlemen.
about our test, right? In the beginning?
Yeah.
Did you saw Joe Embiid versus Carl Towns today?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they got into a scuffle fight today.
Was it good?
It was good.
A good one?
was
Who
good.
won?
Ben Simmons actually had Towns tapping out on the floor.
Did he?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Is it tapping?
Yeah, he was like,
Sounds like MMA.
yeah, it was crazy. I'm like, what the hell am I watching?
But I didn't check that one out. But I am not having Ben Simmons on my show this Saturday.
Yeah.
No, there's some possibility for different guests and things like that this Saturday. So I don't want to reveal anything yet. But yes, we will have a guest. I said Saturday. My show's not on Saturday, so don't tune into my channel on Saturday because I'm not going to be there. It's on Sunday. Stax is going to kill me. Just Boxing Live, Sunday at 2 p.m. You can follow us at Just Boxing Live on Facebook and at Just Boxing Live on Instagram. And that's where you'll find the show and all the updates related to Just Boxing Foundation coming early in 2020.
Nice. Chris, any plugins?
No.
None? All right. A little shout out to Alfonso Gomez. He had a birthday this past week. Yeah, got it right this time.
Getting better. Episode
better.
60.
That guy has
What's the
crazy
60?
stories.
He does.
He has a lot of crazy Uber stories.
He crashed the show one time.
His car.
I saw that.
No, he just crashed the show. Like he just kind of
I saw that.
just came.
Wait, what? He
That's
just
how you
came
do
out
it.
of nowhere? Like
He was
Randy
watching.
Orton?
He was watching it on Facebook. Like he saw that we were live on Facebook, and then he
Wow,
showed up
he
at
showed
the
up?
show
Hey,
and
that's
sat
smart.
down and just started
Damn.
talking.
That's smart.
It was cool. I didn't mind.
You need to up your security, man.
Damn.
You know what's weird though? What's really creepy is when you look down. when you look down at the
Good thing
messages.
we're not live.
Creepy.
When you look down at the messages on Facebook and his message just says "I see you," and I'm like, "What is he talking about?" But it turned out he was there.
Yeah.
So I let him in, man. He sat
Nice.
down and we talked for the rest of the show. It was
Nice.
awesome. Alfonso, oh, happy birthday, man. It was just his birthday. Happy birthday to
Happy
Alfonso.
birthday, man.
All right.
El Gomez Boxing on Instagram.
Absolutely. At El
Damn,
Gomez
hopefully he doesn't
Boxing.
do that to us. Like,
Just crash the show one day? It's fun.
Come on.
It's fun
in.
that way.
Come on in.
I tell
Yeah.
people they can do it, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I mean it yet.
No? I'm just going to show up next Wednesday and see what's...
I see you.
Yeah, I'll stand at that window. Text you guys. I see you.
All right. So they can follow us against THEropes.online and against DAropes_. Yeah. Episode 60.
That was it. Thank you, Sean, for coming.
Glad to be here, man. Anytime.
We'll see you soon. Anything else coming up? No, huh?
No.
All-Star Boxing, December 22nd.
December 22nd.
That's about
Yeah.
it. You should
That's
come next
about
time. Join
Yeah,
us.
I will do.
Commentary table.
Yeah.
I will do.
All
That's
right.
about it, right?
That's it.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Peace.
You already know I'm a fun guy.
Hola amigos, soy Juan Francisco AtR. Quiero mandar un saludo para mis amigos de Contra las Cuerdas. Échenle muchas ganas. Un abrazo, muchas bendiciones.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. You know what mine is? Let's box, bitches. It's almost fight night.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. Thank you for the support. Keep doing your thing. You're doing a great job. So thank you and best wishes.
Huge shout out to Against the Ropes. Against the Ropes.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. Thank you guys for the interview, and hope to see you guys soon.
Against the Ropes, always doing the right thing.
Shout out to Against the Ropes, man. I appreciate you guys for having me, taking the time out y'all day.
Against the Ropes, #1.
Freddie Roach.
Thank you very much.